going far. It's 5 o'clock. Let's
Oh,
go.
shit, okay.
Oh, here we go. All right. Oh, boy. Oh, boy, oh, boy, oh, boy, oh, boy. Blue light, blue glow. Swish. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Iron Theory.
That's okay. We could use this intro. That's fine.
Bros and brolettes.
Vikings and Valkyries.
Welcome to Iron Theory.
A podcast about fitness, life, and everything in between.
I forgot the intro I wrote.
Yeah, that happens. That's okay. Makes it interesting every time you listen to an episode, I guess, right?
Well, I mean, we were off last week for the holidays, so
oh yeah,
you can. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a whole year.
It's been a whole year.
Man, when I was at the gym, I must have heard that joke before my day off. I must have heard that like a million times. Yeah.
I'm so clever. So clever. All right, speaking of being at the gym at the start of the new year, we all know, gym veterans, you know this is the time of the year where things in your gym start to change. You might start seeing some new faces. You're seeing the old faces look a little frustrated. But you know what?
I've seen a lot of that.
Actually,
latter.
Considering you work at the gym, was there an influx of people this year?
You know what? Today was a pretty busy Saturday, so I feel like there is like a slow. People are slowly emerging from the woodwork than they were earlier. Because I feel like people took the year off, like whoever was normally coming, and they're like, okay, well it's 2021. You know, this thing is still kind of happening, but there's definitely more people that showed up today than a typical Saturday. So it was actually pretty packed up until I even got out, which was like 3 o'clock.
Did they look like resolutioners, or did they look like just the old bros coming back saying, fuck it, Corona will kill me, who cares?
So I define the resolutioner as a confused...
Yes.
A deer in the headlights kind of a person. So
all those poor folks.
Yeah, so I definitely saw some people that were like that. Yep, there were definitely a handful of individuals that looked like they needed some assistance. Like they're like, okay, I made it. Now, what do I do? You know.
Yep. So it is New Year's resolution time. Well, you as a trainer see this quite a bit. I, as somebody who is not a professional trainer, but I am a veteran of the gym, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've both been at it for a super long time. It is part of what we do. We do talk about it. So people feel comfortable coming to us asking for help, right? How do I get started? Hey, I want to lose some weight. Or hey, I want to get stronger. Or hey, I want to get faster. And because you're a veteran, right? You're established. You go a lot. We know our stuff, right? So people will ask us for advice. And it's always interesting right around resolution season is... if you are a beginner, please actually ask your experienced friends for help, okay?
Yes.
Don't go into the gym thinking you can do whatever you want just off the top of your head. And it's not because you can. It's not because you're stupid. That's not what we're saying. Some things are complicated, and it is a safety issue, right? Check yourself before you wreck yourself. Make sure you're doing things safely.
Yep.
It's not even about efficiency at that point. It's just about safety.
Very much, I think safety is that key word, because I mean there's a lot of people, you know, that might have that sense of pride that they don't need the assistance, you know, even though they never really had any kind of formal training program or, you know, or had something of the sort, right? So they might have an idea as to what they have to do, so they know they have to. Okay, I need to exercise. Great, got it. So I have to go to the gym. Okay, I need to eat a certain kind of way. All right, got that. But then a lot of people will struggle after that. I mean, then it's just like, you know, people are just drowning in all the information. So just having somebody who is experienced to guide you through the ocean of fitness, you know, to be your guide there, is important.
Yeah, and even if you are... you know, one of the smart people who went on to YouTube University and watched videos on what to do. You're a beginner. You're self-aware of that. You went on YouTube and you're like, how to squat, how to deadlift, how to curl. Great. But if you are a beginner, you have not yet developed the mind-muscle connection to know if you're recreating that movement the way the person on YouTube did, right? It's very easy to go look up Alan Thrall or the dude from Squat University or Mark Bell or whoever, and they walk you through a squat, they talk you through a squat, but you can't see yourself from a different angle. You can't see if your hips are aligned. You can't see where your knees are tracking, right? So even if you did do your due diligence, still, bring a friend with you who's experienced, who can tell you, hey, you're leaning forward, you're leaning back, this is a little bit more efficient. Ask them.
Yeah, because I think it comes down to just having the reassurance factor, like, just the confirmation that what you are doing, in fact, is the correct thing that you're doing. Because, I mean, if you don't have that confirmation, the reassurance of, let's say you're doing a squat, and you might think you're doing it right, but there could have been a small tweak, or you could have been doing a little bit better or more optimal for your specific anatomy, then, you're missing out on that. You're missing out on something that you can learn in the beginning, especially if you start bringing bad habits with you for the duration of your fitness journey. It's going to be really hard to unteach yourself a lot of bad habits. So start smart is what I would say.
Absolutely. So now we got all of that out of the way. You are a gym veteran and a friend, an acquaintance, whoever. Somebody says, hey, Chris, I would like to start working out. Maybe I don't want a trainer, I can't have a trainer, or maybe they're asking me. It's more likely they're asking me because you actually get paid to do it, right? I don't. Mm-hmm. Can you help me get started? Can you show me how things work? Somebody comes up to you, and you are the professional here, so let's actually get started with you, Chris. Brand new gym goer, resolutioner, right? They may have vague goals like I want to lose weight, maybe I want to get stronger, whatever. Eventually, I'm sure we'll get there. How do you get started? First day with a client, or as suggestions to veterans who may pick up a brotege. Mm-hmm. What are your suggestions? How do you get started?
Usually it's a series of questions you just have to ask the person. It's like, all right, well, why are you doing this in the first place? Usually I would start, what are your specific goals? What are you trying to achieve in the gym, and how do you plan on getting there? By just giving them a bunch of questions that essentially have them talk themselves into it, as far as like, okay, well, I need to do X, Y, and Z, right? So it definitely starts with a series of questions to just get more information, so an assessment that usually I'll do. So there was a packet that was laying around somewhere over here which had a bunch of questions on there, and the very first one essentially says, describe your goals, right? And I won't read it off, like I just know it, but I'll just write it down, the information on those little packets. But just getting as much information as much as possible. And then, once I have that, the words, and then I want to see the physical aspect. Okay, great. You want to lose weight? So let's see.
But before you move on,
yeah,
I do have a question about that. The way they answer the question, so based on their specific goals, let's say it's a newbie, does the way you get started with them, so the first things you teach them, does their actual goal matter for like maybe the first 3 or 4 weeks? Or do you actually get different people with different goals started down a different path?
So a lot of some stuff will cross over. So usually I'll do some kind of physical assessment to see how, if they've had injuries. I'll usually have them do a version of a squat to assess the movement pattern. If there's something that's tight, if there's something that's just, off within the squat, tight hips, ankles, foot mobility, stuff like that. So usually I'll start with an assessment like that, a physical assessment, upper body stuff. And then from there, depending on what their goal is, so if somebody's trying to lose weight, I'll usually walk them through a workout that might resemble something where it's like more like high intensity interval training or something like that. So there's just a little bit more movement, just to get their heart rate up a bit more. If it's somebody who wants to be more strength oriented, then I might do like a heavier sets, 4x10 or something like that. Still assessing their movement patterns. So if they've been in the gym, right, then I want to know their experience. So what do you really know? And then kind of confirm that by doing those exercises and then see if you need touch-ups and then just kind of go from there. So there's certain different avenues I'll take depending on what the goal is, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So moving forward, you've had a conversation, you've had a discussion, we've both agreed on goals. I'm guessing by now you've already done your assessment, right? What are their movement patterns, any injuries? We discussed that. So what happens next? You have a protege. In your case, you have an actual client.
Yep.
What's the next step here?
So next step would be, because I also throw nutrition into whatever their goal is. So there's always going to be that follow-up. So usually I'll follow up the next day, see how they're feeling after the initial session, and then just kind of go over their expectations from me. You know, how much of my assistance do they need throughout the week, and if there's anything else they would possibly need, if they do need some kind of training program to do on their own, or if they're just wanting for me to hold their hand throughout the whole thing. You know, I kind of go in that direction. So there's a confirmation period, you know, a reassurance period with the clients.
Now, if you are not a professional trainer, so if you're just somebody and your friend asks you for help, you know, for a resolution, getting started in the gym, that's probably an important conversation to have with your friend too. Like, hey, I'm at the gym, I only have X amount of hours in the day, right? If I start helping you, that's volunteer hours. Set some boundaries, you know, make sure that they understand, sure, you're welcome to tag along in the gym with me and I'll happy to show you the ropes, but at the same time, I am also here to train. So make sure you set those boundaries with whoever you're trying to help out, you know?
So, so that kind of would switch gears then, because you know I'm on more the, you know, it's a career thing, so there's a certain level of professionalism, you know, and of course because there's the personal trainer aspect, there has to be some kind of relationship you do have with these clients. You're not right, treating them like you know, a different kind of person, right? You talk to them like a human being, but like from your perspective, I think it's a bit more interesting because you've had some people that you've kind of guided in their own fitness journeys, but I feel like it's a bit more in the informal, you know, just within the realm, but a bit more informal. So how do you approach that, you know, when you have somebody approach you to you know, train them, you know?
Well, so here's the thing. I don't bring too many people into the gym with me.
Yeah.
I very rarely agree to actually have somebody go to the gym with me. There were 3 in like the past X number of years that I've ever done. It is well, it's just because, one, I'm not a professional, so I don't know too much, right? I know enough.
You know enough.
I don't know too much. 2, if you are going to go to the gym with me, I'm in the gym 2-3 hours at a time, right? I need you to know it's a massive time commitment. And that's just what I do. So if I have to show you what I'm doing as I'm going, it's a massive time commitment. So I'm just not selfless enough of a friend to invite people into the gym with me.
So like for me, I don't necessarily get too picky with the type of client that I would get, because sometimes, you know, being at the type of gym that I'm at, you know, if the sales folks at the desk are, you know, selling somebody on personal training, and you're like, oh, okay, well this person is, you know, 50 years old, they have back issues, you know, they're trying to do this and that. Are you willing to take them? You know, so do you give yourself a type of client or, you know, friend that you are willing to train? Do they have to align more with your specific goals?
Yes. Yeah. So there are, if you ask me a question on Facebook and you're a friend of mine and you want advice on how to get stronger, how to get even how to get faster. I'm not a great cardio athlete, but I've done a half marathon. I've done a 50-mile bike ride. I'm a relatively adept at hiking and all of that stuff. So I'm more than happy to answer all those questions about how I increased my endurance to do those activities. Right, mostly I'm a strength athlete. So if you come asking me how to lift, how to do a certain squat, I have a friend who wanted to fill out her arms a little bit more. She's getting married at some point, so she just wants to look a little bit better, fit her dress better, right? I'm more than happy to give you advice and point you to resources on how to do that.
Yeah.
If you actually want to come train with me,
it's a different ball
only
game.
If you intend to get stronger.
Yeah.
Like
because you're trying to hit your own specific goals, so you want somebody who's more or less within that same lane for you to at least stay on the path, right?
Right, absolutely.
Am I assuming that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So all the people I've gone to the gym with, who have trained with me, have become training partners, or who I've taught in the context of strength, how to get stronger.
Yeah.
And in that context, then later they can branch out, right? Maybe they want to focus on this. Maybe they want to look a little bit a certain way. So they'll try to get a little bit more into the physique aspect of things. But no, if you are going to train with me, I don't care what your goals are. You're training with me, and my goals are strength. So that's what you're doing.
Right, and I think that's fair, and that's where there's that differentiation, because as a fitness professional, there's a lot of people who will specialize in a specific thing. So there are people who are just specifically a strength coach and they only train people in strength or whatever, or somebody who's a bodybuilding coach or whatever, then they only specifically take on clients who are, competitors in bodybuilding. Yeah. So, for me, it's definitely, it's general fitness, because most of my clients are going to be people who are just trying to look better or be healthier. Usually that's the basis of my clientele. And you'll get I'll get the occasional, athlete and, somebody who's actually trying to train for something. But, majority of my clients are going to be, the normie type, right?
So I do want to ask you, what are the first things you teach, or what are the first things you try to get ahead? But before that, you mentioned that you'll get a wide range, right? You'll get people that used to be athletic, maybe college or something, and then they go to the gym and they just want to improve their skill set or become better or something. And the people who are just in the gym trying to get healthier, it might be their first time there, and they need you to show you the ropes. Who do you prefer? Somebody who is fresh to the gym, never been to the gym, or somebody who used to go to the gym but has bad habits?
Ooh, that's a good question, actually. As far as my personal preference, I do like the newbie, like somebody who's never stepped into the gym, because then I can, impose my philosophies and stuff like that on these individuals and just kind of give them objective facts, obviously, but then I have my own little flair for certain things that they'll just kind of pick up because they have no choice, because they're with me. But I think it takes a little bit more patience with somebody like that, but there also takes some patience with somebody who has been in the gym who does have bad habits, because in their mind when they get there, they think they just need an extra push until you start pointing out, certain things that they have been doing wrong. And then the trick is not to offend or put them down. So there's a fine line you have to kind of walk when I choose words and what I'm going to say or phrase, right? So if they're doing a squat and when they're squatting, their pelvis is completely tilting outward, right? So their butt's caving in, right? So they're not sticking that butt out, and they're jumping up on their toes, right? So, they're like, oh yeah, I squatted, cool. All right, let's see, right? And then I'll observe and okay, cool. So not bad, good depth, right? I'll say something that's more, more or less that's true, right? They have good depth, but their butt is, I'll make the little adjustments, right? So that's kind of my approach. But yeah, I would say it's definitely the newbie. I like the newbie who's just super dedicated, because they're just so passionate to getting to a specific thing and they're showing it. That's my ideal, I would say.
I agree. 10 out of 10 times I will prefer the newbie, because even if they want to, learned habits, if you learn to squat a particular way, changing that, unlearning and relearning a new way is so much harder than just learning it right the first time.
Exactly.
God, and that's true for everything in life. If you're a musician and your thumb position on the guitar was wrong.
Oh yeah.
If you're a drummer and you're holding the stick wrong. If you are in the gym and you learned a movement in a particular way, damn it, your CNS already adapted to a particular movement pattern.
Yep.
It is such, and I've done, because I've switched my deadlift form and I've changed my squat form. It took longer to change than it did to learn the initial movement. It is a nightmare to relearn a movement.
I like that you brought up the musician stuff, because I just want to touch on that, because we have experience. You more so, or more or less on the more taught side, whereas I'm more self-taught. And that's the problem, is because I'm self-taught, there's certain habits that just kind of stick. So knowing a certain way to play a guitar and then trying to, develop speed requiring, more like wrist movement instead of like a whole forearm movement is so difficult to unlearn.
And your piss poor pinky strength.
Oh my God. Yeah. Especially, when I pick up a guitar, I know I want to play a guitar, right? So my first three fingers here, well, my pointer, middle, ring finger are my strongest fingers. But when it comes to, pinky strength, especially doing like runs, is so difficult to unlearn, especially when oh my God, it's been like a couple more like 5 years where I'll just be practicing, triplet notes. But then, so exactly, you got the word for it. So, I mean, exactly right. That just proves my point that, unlearning a bad habit is difficult. Not impossible, but difficult.
Okay, so now, I mean, assuming it's a resolutioner, so we're talking about somebody who's brand new to the gym. Let's go for it. What do you teach them first? What do you think is most important that no matter what, you're starting off in the gym, here's what you need to know?
Usually I'll set down the philosophy, the mindset first. So, what's the expectation to be successful in any way as far as like fitness is concerned? Somebody's trying to lose weight. Usually I'll spend a lot of time on the conversation first before we start doing any physical stuff. So I will tell them right out the gate, you need to be consistent with your programming, right? Even if you're doing a piss poor job in your exercises and you're not nailing them, you're not 100%, you're not going full range of motion, but that person who's doing that is still going to have a better result than a person who's not willing to go and do that. So I usually will start with just building the mindset and the expectations that need to be met, because there's so much bullshit out there that's saying, oh, you can get shredded by, not eating after dark and drinking water, whatever the fuck, whatever kind of thing is out there. So just setting realistic expectations is always first, no matter what, no matter if you're new or if you're a veteran. And then, when it comes down to the actual movement pattern. So when we're talking about just exercise, I'll always start with a squat, and then assess their body, because you can assess their whole body through a squat.
Oh yeah.
So from their feet to their ankles to their knees to their hips to their core strength to their T-spine, and just using that as a basis for everything else, because then that just tells me everything I need to know for the most part about core strength and stability and all that stuff. So I'll start there with exercise. But yeah, first thing I'll always teach them is or talk about is the realistic expectations, what you should expect, right? So that's usually what I'd go do.
I'm so glad that you said that you start off with the mindset and the expectations, because now that I'm reflecting back on the people I have trained with, I never had that conversation with them. I mean, I mentioned, the benefit of newbie gains and how, yeah, it's great. Just be aware. Don't expect that progress to be linear.
Yep.
So, I mean, I've had those conversations, but now that I'm thinking about it, every time I've picked up a brotege, so of course unpaid, I'm not a trainer, right? These are just people who ask me that I let them train with me.
Mm-hmm.
I never actually had the discussion about what a realistic expectation is, what you should expect to see, what you should expect to feel. I did not have that conversation, and I wonder if I did them a disservice by...
Well, here's another thing. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not perfect, so there were moments where I did have people who would just straight up say, I just want to work out, right? So usually I'll gauge it and talk and slip these things during a workout. So I'll usually plant these seeds during a workout, because I feel like I could still set that expectation during the workout, because then it'll even be more living proof or physical proof for them that, okay, well, you thought you could do this, but here's the reality of you doing this exercise and your conditioning and what you need to do now. So usually it's the seeing is believing kind of a thing. So I mean, it still comes down to that thing though. So even if somebody just wants to work out right away, I don't give a shit about, setting goal expectations or whatever. Either way, it comes back to bite you in the ass, because then you can be, oh, what happened? I'm not getting results or whatever, right? So I'm like, okay, well, I did mention this, and I always say that because as a an accountability thing, you have to kind of let them understand what they are doing as to why they're not succeeding, right? And so I usually won't take the blame for myself unless unless there's an injury that happens, right? If it's a physical thing, if somebody gets injured, which has never happened, thank God, to one of my clients. But usually it comes down to the expectation. So when I set those expectations at the beginning, there's nothing, out of left field that they would expect. Oh, I thought I was promised to look like fucking The Rock in like 3 months. No. So I always set that expectation, with them, whoever they are.
So you have the expectations, and you mentioned that you started with a squat because it's really good at diagnosing weak points, and but what about actually teaching them? So actually training them. So what's your general philosophy? If you have a newbie, you're getting them started, what are you focusing on? What are your general, like, hey, let's get XYZ out of the way before we start moving on to other stuff? What's like the first couple of weeks of actual training? What are you helping them with? What are you telling them to do? How are you getting them started?
So I'll usually base the training around a few different things. So your typical pushes, pulls. So there's going to be your horizontal pull, your vertical pulls, your horizontal pushes, your vertical pushes, carries, core stability, stuff like that. So there's basic stuff, just being a human being, what we should be just good at least bare minimum, flexibility, mobility, stuff like that. So all those things. So just kind of nailing all those and making sure that specific foundation is good, even if it's, as long if it's subpar, we got to get it to at least normal, like good. Like if there's tightness or just weaknesses, then at least get it to like where it's like, okay, manageable, right? So usually that's where I'll start. So there'll always be some kind of, foundational thing like that, So and the exercises will vary, because one exercise might feel uncomfortable and then another exercise feels great, but you're still accomplishing the same thing. So, maybe pulling a dumbbell feels weird, but pulling on a cable machine feels better, or whatever, So that's the little nuance stuff is equipment selection, exercise selection, but the goals are still the same,
And I think that might be a huge difference between just, a gym veteran, somebody asked you for help, versus an actual professional trainer, right? If you are somebody who just goes to the gym, right, you're actually kind of set in your ways. Mm-hmm. So whoever you're training is just going to do things probably the way you're doing, and you might not even think at that moment, hey, like a single arm dumbbell row is not feeling very comfortable for me. Well, maybe their stabilizers just aren't there yet. These are things that need to develop, and you just don't remember, or maybe it's just outside of your working memory now. That, hey, when you first started, like I remember when I first started, the bench press was impossible.
Oh my God.
I couldn't, do you remember the first time you've ever benched?
It was such a...
God.
I remember, being at Planet Fitness, they like I would attempt to because a lot of the programs that I would see, it's like, oh, you need to do bench press or whatever. Yeah. So I would rig the Smith machine to do a bench press, right?
Oh, God, I cringe thinking about that now.
And it forces you in a specific movement pattern. You're forced in this specific movement pattern, just like a machine, right? Which they have their place, but it's by no means the same thing as just doing a bench press, just having this free weight moving. Now you're trying to figure out, okay, like my arms were like, just like, I mean, my arms shake now. Like my shoulder, my left shoulder, you know, I'm sure it's still feeling that rotator thing I had at one point, but like it was like even the bar just like
Jello arms,
because it just didn't know how to do it.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just, and that really is the difference between a professional trainer and someone who's just helping out a friend, right? You know, okay, if this isn't working, here's what we can do. Here are the steps to build you up to this movement. And I think that that's something that if you are picking up a brotege and you are showing someone the ropes, you know, if you're taking time out of your day, make sure you're actually being helpful to them, right? Recognize that if something's not working for them, that there are alternatives that they can do,
right,
that would be better for them.
So, I mean, this specific episode is talking to the individuals that do have, you know, some sort of experience within fitness, and they've been exercising in some capacity. So, if you have somebody that, you know, in your social circle that's been, you know, asking for your help, and they do want to succeed in whatever it is that their goal is, then I think the key thing is going to be patience, because that's, you know, they might not be at the same wavelength as you. They don't have that same fitness level as you. And, you know, they might be hard-headed and they want to change their ways or whatever it is. So, I mean, it's just a matter of patience. And then, yeah, time, if you're not a professional and not getting paid for it, it's kind of, you know, then it's just a work of love. So it's just like something that, you know, if you got time for it and you want to commit to that, great. But, you know, if you don't, it sucks. But I mean, we're talking to essentially the individuals who would like to help that person, right?
Yeah.
So
I have a similar way that if I start people, and I got 3 people started on their way, and it's kind of similar to what you said. It's those movement patterns, right? So you said the horizontal push, the vertical push, and the horizontal pull and the vertical pull. I make those significantly more specific, right? Because if you're training with me, you are actually pigeonholed into certain movements. It's not like, oh, if a squat doesn't feel too great right now, we can do a leg press. No, you can't do a leg press. That's not my sport. So for me, it's starting and teaching those basic movements. So when I teach the squat, right, we start with a positioning. I know that there is a lot of debate over what the perfect squat positioning is. And once you get stronger, you get to start doing that. But for me, right, jump. And wherever your positioning is, where you feel you can jump the highest, that's going to be your starting position for a squat. Now, as you get stronger and you want to progress and you want to squat more than 300 pounds, sure, we can start changing that. But leg positioning, air squat.
That's a good. I like that you mentioned that, because that's actually something I do. Assuming that, you know, their ankles and all that are good.
Yeah.
But if they don't know, the question will come up, you know, where do I put my feet? You know, that's pretty common. Like, oh, how am I supposed to keep my feet? Because, like, some people will say, oh, I heard you have to keep them pointed forward. But, I mean, it's not, for most people, that's just not a comfortable position, because those feet are just going to start screwing out anyways. Because it's just not comfortable, right? Mine don't do that. Mine are out here. I know I have somebody whose feet are like out here, because that's just, you know, that's comfortable. Even giving them, you know, that much more, if they brought their feet in, they're just going to naturally curve out. So, and
the individuals who are listening to us on Spotify or Podcaster or Apple Podcasts, what Chris was demonstrating is the angle of the foot. So whether your toes are pointed straight or pointed outwards.
I got to be more descriptive with my wording. Yeah, so I mean, just the placing of the foot. So when you jump and you look at your feet and they might wind up in a different position, that is your natural foot stance. So that's your most optimal positioning to get the most force out of, you know, your squat or jump or whatever. Yeah. So that's where you want to be when you squat, right? When you're barbell squatting. So It's a good little tool to use for people to figure that out. So
Yeah, so pro tip, if you're getting somebody started and they don't know how to position themselves, your body, your central nervous system's already adept to moving in a certain way. Start there and you can do modifications later.
Yep.
So it'll be a lot of that. And for me, a lot of it is really focusing on getting a good setup for the lift. So I will focus on what it means to brace for a squat, what it means to brace for a deadlift. I don't care how bench press, teaching the bench press is always probably the most difficult lift for me to teach. It's still a lift
I was going to ask
I haven't mastered. Yeah. I start immediately teaching them the setup, the shoulder retraction, all of that stuff. And when I train bench press, you might be lifting the empty bar for 4 or 5 weeks. I remember when I started training Natalia, my current training partner, it was an empty bar for 3-4 weeks before we put any weight on it. You have to master the arch, master the shoulder retraction, master the positioning of the elbows, and master the leg drive. So for me, it's teaching the setup for a lift and then putting on weight. And I will actually tell people to put on weight relatively quickly. Like if you deadlift with me, you will deadlift 135 pounds on day one.
In some capacity.
Yeah, I'm dead serious. Chris has made fun of me for it, that I push people too quickly. I don't care. On day one, if we train deadlifts, like the first day we deadlift, you will pull 135 pounds with me because that's your 0-pound deadlift. I don't care. It's 135 pounds. You're not going to hurt yourself unless you weigh like 90 pounds, but I wouldn't train anybody who weighs 90 pounds.
Right. So,
yeah.
Which I'm kind of glad you bring that up.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, there's just so many individual, because your specific, protege, right, is essentially an archetype of you. Essentially, like what their goal is, you have a certain expectation because, this is your standard, then they have to abide by those standards. And as long as you make that clear, I think that's fair, honestly, to say that. But like I would say, like, if I'm training somebody and I have a lot of, clients who are more or less normies, 135 pounds for, an 18-year-old girl who's never, done a deadlift in her life. I don't know if that would be a starting point for me, but
Right.
I would get, the nice thing about my gym is that they do have the big rubber plates. So you can do the bare minimum, which is these big green 10-pound plates, which give you the proper depth of the deadlift. And that's usually where I'll start. And if it looks really good, I'm usually progressing for a few sets that same day. So if they have this just natural strength, like today was an example. Girl was like, we were supposed to deadlift today. I was like, oh yeah, great, we're going to deadlift today. And we go upstairs. I throw the 10s on. She does like 10 reps, very easy, up and down, very quick, good form. And I'm like, okay, cool. So it looked pretty good. Let's slap on another 10 on each side, add another 20 pounds here, go another 10 and see how she does. And she's still very speedy, right? So then eventually I was like, all right, fuck it. Let's do 5 reps. Let's go a little heavier. Let's do 35 on each side. So the big blue rubber plates. So I throw those on. And that was harder. So that's about 115 pounds. But, she was able to do it for 5 reps for 2 sets. So, I mean, yeah, it's just good to teach the right form, right? Just like you were saying. So,
and it is a fair point that if somebody agrees to train with me, it's not like I warned them. They know what they're in for, you know,
right.
and they agree to it. So,
I think
kudos to them.
That's fair.
So there is a distinction in how we get people started. And then, it's just the movement patterns, just like on an overhead press. Where are your elbows? Where are your shoulders? I teach movement patterns because one thing I wish I did more was actually start like informing people earlier about what muscle does what sort of movement. So your bicep, what does it do? What movement is it responsible for? The
right.
pull?
Usually I'll do that.
Yeah. So that's another thing I definitely want to do. So that's how we get people started, right? And I think that's a pretty good place to move on for the next, unless you have more to add about. We focus, you focus on the push-pull motions. I focus on my sport-specific motions, squat, bench, dead, and the setup Is there any more advice we want to give to somebody starting with a brotege?
I mean, I would say is like just kind of thinking back to everything that I was kind of saying. You were saying, I think we covered a lot of the important information. So essentially, everything we said is a good blueprint for the individual who is trying to teach that up and comer how to navigate the gym and kind of head towards their goals on their fitness journey. So I think we covered a lot.
Oh yeah, I almost forgot one last thing I want to add. It is up to you as the gym veteran inviting someone in whether or not you want to show off for them.
Oh, yeah.
I love bringing somebody into the gym, putting 440 pounds on the bar, ripping it off the floor, and be like, hey, do you want to try to see what that feels like? And, of course, they're like tugging on it. The metal's bending, and they're like, how do you do that? You are more than welcome to show them what a possible, in 3 years, you will be able to do this. It's up to you whether or not you want to show off. There is nothing wrong with showing off to your brotege, with letting them know what's possible, letting them see physically what's possible. Then it's that anecdote, right? I did XYZ. If you do XYZ and you stay true, you will also be able to do this, if not more.
Right. And also debatable as far as, some of the, I mean, that's kind of like guaranteeing the person, oh yeah, like you're giving them this like hope now that they might be able to pull 405 in 3 years, and then they might not, right? That's also a reality.
Yeah, and by then they might realize that like, okay, this is a lot harder work than I thought, and then they'll either stay on the train or fall off the train. But
I know what you mean by showing off. I mean, usually I'll. I don't know if I'll show off during a lift. Like I won't be like, hold on, let me do some reps, because I feel like, and depending on the individual, because it's like, okay, well, if this person's like super intimidated by the gym, then I just start ripping this weight off the floor, and they're like, oh shit, and they're like struggling on it. I'm like, come on, pussy, well, you can't do that. Like I feel like I would be personally like, ah, shit, I'm a chump, right? Yeah. So. But it depends on the individual. There's people who want to see that. They want the proof. Oh, well, okay. Well, what can you do? Right? So you show them, and then they're like, oh, okay, cool. So I guess I got the right person or whatever. So yeah, that's it's very situational for me.
Yeah.
If they want to see a lift or whatever, and they're struggling on 225, I'll 15 rep that thing on a deadlift or whatever.
That said, you are a trainer. So it is a little different for you, right? I mean,
for sure. Like there's a professionalism, but if it's like if it's
for
like
me, it's
friend,
all like, fuck you. You're in the gym with me.
Yeah,
Here's what I do. I'm gonna show off. You ask me for help. I want you to see exactly what you got yourself into.
Definitely a different aura. Yeah, for sure.
It's okay to bro down.
Yes.
All right. In which case, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for episode 2 of Fake Natty News. Hit the intro button.
I was going to say, do we have a segue to this?
We do. We do have the intro button.
Okay, here we go.
Those are the gym bros. Look at them. Those are fake natties, or somebody who would call you a fake natty. All right.
Yeah, they're them.
Yep. Welcome to Fake Natty News Network, your most trusted source for news. My name is Wayne T. Gaynor.
And I am A. Broham. Today's top headline: research published in New England Journal of Medicine suggests the influx of resolutioners poses no additional risk in coronavirus transmission to established gym rats. The doctors warned that the resolutioners, however, are at high risk. The report explains the immune systems of regular gym goers are primed against a variety of pathogens. Over 99% of gym rats are exposed daily to botulism, plague, E. coli, salmonella, hepatitis, Zika, Venezuelan equine encephalitis, See, we practiced this. We did. West Nile virus, rabies, leprosy, depression and anxiety, body dysmorphia, and high car insurance rates. Resolutioners, however, have yet to develop immunity to these. Public health experts suggest wiping down equipment, washing your hands, and putting only 2 dumbbell handles in your mouth and eyeballs per day to slowly expose your body to build your immune system.
In other news today, gym veteran John Buell was very excited to receive the results of his DNA test kit that his daughter got him for Christmas. The results verified his suspicion that he is Icelandic. He immediately changed his name to Johan Bielsen and began dressing like a Viking in the gym. Daily, he did hundreds of sets of rows so he can be adept at rowing a ship. Johan devoted his entire life now to pagan traditions. This began causing problems to the gym community. You see, he began every training session, which he now calls a ritual, with cleansing the area by burning sage. This set off the fire alarm in the gym and set off the fire sprinkler system. It caused about $20,000 in damage to equipment. Johan has since been kicked out of the gym. Wait. I'm hearing a breaking news alert from our producers. Parked outside the local gym is a large wooden ship. A siege of men has begun storming the door. We will provide you updates as they become available. Thank you for listening to Fake Natty News Network.
Should I?
No. Wait. Oh, no. We don't have an ending screen yet. No, we don't have
okay.
I'll get you one more screen to show us an ending.
Yeah.
So let's summarize what we talked about today. You have a protege. Number one, talk about expectations.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. That would be number one. Expectations, the reality, be it cynicism.
Yep.
Yeah, that's expectations for sure is number one.
Number two, we both kind of agree on this, movement patterns. Right?
Movement patterns, yep. Just the fundamental things that as human beings we should be capable of doing. Yep.
And three, follow up on your protege. If they skip a day, ask them if they're sore. Just make sure they continue with you. If they have certain goals, they asked you for help, great. And unless you're a professional trainer and you're getting paid to do this, you're just a regular dude who goes to the gym a lot and knows their shit, and somebody asks you for help. Just realize what you're getting into. It's a huge responsibility to have a protege.
Yes.
It is a lot of time. It's a commitment of work. Just think about how long it took you to learn the things at the gym. How long it took you to master these lifts. Maybe you had help. Maybe you didn't, right? Think about what was helpful to you and try to pass that on to somebody who is genuinely also looking to improve their life in this particular way.
That's perfect. Well said.
Yeah.
Well said.
That said, speaking of trying to